Get to where we are with Rick Santorum, atop of national polls for the Republican nomination. That was his question, and to talk about it is columnist John Bear. He's live on the phone. John, thanks for making time for me.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so here's part of what you wrote. Here's a thought for President's Day. President Santorum, did you just shiver? That's the start of your piece here. Some might say, what is your beef with Rick Santorum? I'll let you defend it.
Well, I mean, Pennsylvanians know Rick Santorum well. I covered him when he was in the Senate and when he ran for election and re-election here in Pennsylvania. And so a lot of Pennsylvanians are asking that question. What is the deal with the Republican Party? Why do they appear to be willing to nominate someone who, when he was a leader in the Senate, the number 3 man in the Republican Senate at the time, lost his home state by 17.4%, a blowout, the largest loss of any incumbent Republican. And now the guy seems to be positioned to win the nomination of his party for president. And I think a lot of Pennsylvanians just don't get it.
You say in your piece that you wrote Rick off after his strong showing in Iowa, a state that in an example of what a wacky year this is, he's officially won weeks later by 0.1%. So you wrote him off after Iowa, but he's kept going.
I did write him off, and the reason I wrote him off at that time was I said now that national media will take a closer look. That didn't happen. Cameron, as you know, with the subsequent primaries, he finished no better than third in 4 in a row. It wasn't until he won 2 low turnout caucuses in western states and a non-binding primary that suddenly he was back in the game. And so now I think finally people are starting to listen to what he says. And when you listen to what he says, you get things like talking about prenatal testing or talking about abortion, contraceptive, talking about somebody's phony theology. These are not issues that I believe a majority of the American people want to focus a presidential campaign on. They might be great issues for university chat. They might be great issues for a Sunday forum at your local church. But they're not the issues that are driving the voting public of the United States. And I think that the party is in a bad place to assume that they are.
But John, you have people who turn out to these rallies and they say Rick Santorum is the everyman. They believe it is relatable. They relate to the direction he would like to see this country go. Perhaps not on every issue, as in the ban of contraceptions, even though he said he would never vote for anything like that. But there has to be, I would think, something more than this anybody but Mitt Romney stating exactly the things that you've named that have recently been heavily discussed regarding Rick Santorum and his views.
Yeah, and look, there's no question. I've been surprised by the fact that he hasn't cashed in more on his own background. He talks about his grandfather working in the coal mines of western Pennsylvania. He talks about his relatively humble beginnings. But look, he's not an everyman anymore. Since he left the United States Senate, his income has been in the $1 million a year range. He's made an awful lot of money working for companies and industries that benefited from things that he sponsored when he was in the Senate. So everywhere you look, you see reasons to challenge the sort of everyman approach. People forget he was very involved in the K Street project, the lobbying project that sent Jack Abramoff to prison. And there's a whole history about Rick Santorum that hasn't yet gotten a full-blown look. I think once it does, the party will have to look elsewhere.